Okay, so picking up where we left off, if you remember in the last video where we got the HTML up and running, the EJS file, I said ignore the form for now, we're coming back to that. Well, now is a video where we're going to get that form working. And it involves a couple of new concepts, so hang in there. The MySQL part is the same. We've already seen how to insert. If we go back to this early, where is it? Here we go. We've seen how to insert this single file. We inserted this single Rusty the dog. We also saw how to do it with this object syntax. And then we saw how to do a bulk insert with a lot of them, which we don't need to worry about. So we've seen how to do this. Now we need to figure out a couple things. One, how do we get the data from the form? This form here, unstyled, so this form. A user types their email and it hits join now. First of all, where do they send that request to? We need to figure that out. And maybe you guessed this, we need to define a route for that. But there's a slight difference in that route, which I'll get to in a second, because there's another problem, which is how does that data from the form get there? Well, what we want to do is use what's known as a post route. So there are different types of requests. I briefly touched on this get and post requests. This is not a course in HTTP, so you'll kind of just have to take me at my word here that we need to use a post request because it allows us to send data with the request. The form will automatically take the data from here and send it as a post request to the destination that we tell it to send it to. So let me show you how we do that. We've already seen, we deleted it honestly from the form, so there's no suspense here. We create a form element, and the first thing we can do is add in method. In method, we will set to be post. It can be all caps, all lowercase, it doesn't matter. You'll see both. And that is saying that when this form is submitted from this button, the last button, or if a button is the last thing in a form, it will automatically submit the form. So when it's submitted, it's going to be a post request, and we'll send it to a route that doesn't exist yet. So we send that with action equals, and then we could send it slash, but that would just redirect us back here, except that needs to be a get request, so we'll get to that in a moment. But we could do slash register. We'll make up a route that doesn't exist. So right now this form is going to take us to a page that doesn't exist. And if I try it, massive. Oh, this is still much bigger than it is in reality. It's about this size, but that's harder to read, so I'm just increasing the font. So if I enter something in here, blah, I click join now, it tells me cannot post to slash register. Great. So we need to define a post route to slash register. And again, the reason we're doing post is it allows us to send the form data. But what I could also do, if I did a get request, I'll show you what happens. We already have a get route defined, a couple of them. Let's do a get request to slash joke. So what that means is that when this form is submitted, it's going to send the data to slash joke as a get, which we already have. That's what this get comes from, app.get slash joke. So if I restart and try it again, this time, if I enter whatever there and I click join now, you'll see it takes me to slash joke. There's also a question mark here, so that's something to consider. What's happening is that our data isn't being sent because we're not giving it a name to be sent under. So what we do is assign our input here a name. And this will be the label for whatever this is right here, which is email. So that's the best thing we could put there, email. So when our data is sent off by the form, it will be referred to as email. And there's only one piece of data that we need. If we had multiple things in our form, we might have email and first name and last name, and they could all have a name. So now if we do it, actually don't need to restart the server to do that. But now if I do blah@gmail.com and I hit join now, notice that my URL, it's hard to read, but it says slash joke. We sent a get request to slash joke, and then it appends email equals blah, %40 is what it's doing for the @gmail.com. So you can see our form data is making it here to a different request, but this is not a post request. And we want it to be a post request for really the main reason is that we don't want our data just to be appended like this in the URL. We could get away with that. The standard way of sending data from a form, if you're adding it into a database, is to do it as a post request. This is known as a query string. There's a lot of terminology here. This doesn't matter. We don't want it to work this way. I'm just telling you that it's not a conventional, it's not a good practice. If you're doing like a search form or something, this makes sense. And you may have noticed search forms and search results will often have query strings after the route. We don't want that. We want to send our data using a post request, and not to /joke, but to /register. Now the problem is, how do we create a route that will listen for that? Essentially, what we're trying to do, back to this handy dandy animation, is something like this. Hello server, I would like to sign up, here's my email, pass the email to the server, and then our Node app, our Express app, is going to take that email and run an insert query with MySQL. MySQL hopefully says, great, it worked. Then we get back either something like this, a thanks for registering page, or we just redirect back to the home. So we'll decide on that. So how do we get the Express app, the right side here in the green, to accept this email, or to even know that a request is being made to /register? With this, app.post. This is how we define a post route. Just like a get route, except it's app.post, everything else is the same. So let's do that now. App.post /register, which needs to match whatever we put here. So if this was registration or create user, then this needs to be registration or create user. And our same request and response. This will only be triggered when a post request is sent to /register. So just to prove that, let's do a console.log post request sent to /register, just like this. And now if I restart my server, I have to go back here. If I submit this form, I'll make it take up half the window here. Watch down here. And I go here and I type whatever I want in here and I click join now. Notice that we get our post request sent to /register. And if I try and get there another way, like by just going to /register, this is sending a GET request. We haven't actually discussed that, but when you just go click on a link or you enter a URL manually, that is sending a GET request. And that's why it's telling me it cannot get /register. So essentially the only way that we're going to be able to, in practice at least, that we'll be able to get to this route here and trigger this code is through the form. So one more time, put something in here, watch down there. A post request is being sent every time. So what we want to do now is be able to extract the data that's being sent. And for now, you have to trust that it's being sent, that our form data is being sent. We don't have a way of seeing it. And the way that we see it, oh boy, it's a little bit complicated. I'm going to walk you through the steps here. This is the annoying setup we have to do. So we have to install something called Body Parser. And I won't waste much time talking about it. What's happening is that Express is a lightweight framework, which means that it doesn't come with everything that you would possibly want pre-installed. So we have to go and select certain things, and Body Parser is one. What it does is it parses the request body. So remember that when a request is sent, there's all this, it's just a giant block of text, and somewhere in there it says email is equal to whatever we typed in here. But it's in a giant block of text. It's not JavaScript or anything. So Body Parser will intercept that and turn it into JavaScript that we can then use and manipulate. So then what we need to do, and I'm just doing this quickly, it's just copy and pasting, importing Body Parser equals require Body Parser. So we can save that. Make sure our package.json has Body Parser in it. Then finally, we need to tell our app to use it. So I'm also just going to copy that line and put it next to app.set so we have our configuration lines together. We're not going to go into detail on this line, but this is just requiring Body Parser doesn't do anything. We have to tell Express, which is app, right? App is from Express, that we're using Body Parser. And this now allows us to extract information from post requests. And here's the magic line. Request.body.email. So what this will now store in the request body in that post route under email will be the email address coming from the form. So let me show you that. If we go to our post route for register, rather than console.log post request sent to /user, we'll also add plus request.body.email. Email is, how about that? Request.body.email. Okay. So we definitely need to make sure that we have name equals email. and then we should be good to go, assuming our install went okay. Let's start the server again. It looks good. Let's go over here. Just going to refresh this page. Now I'll type c@gmail.com, join now, and what do you know? Post request sent to /register, email is c@gmail.com. So whatever is typed into that form is being stored in request.body as email. So body parser is doing the heavy lifting for us here. We had to do kind of a couple of annoying lines, but let me show you what body looks like. So request.body on its own. So I'm going to comment that line out. We're not console.logging anything. Now, if we go back to the form, refresh, and I type, h@gmail.com, and I click join now, this is what our request body looks like. Email is h@gmail.com. Again, email is coming from here. But if I get rid of body parser, let me show you what life is like without it. And I do the same exact thing, h@gmail.com. Now there is no request.body. It's undefined. I did everything else the same. So just this single line telling our app to use body parser is what allows us to access request.body. So the information is still being sent to Express, but Express is just not doing anything with it. Request.body is what we need along with this body parser line to start using it. So it's kind of confusing, but that's the whole kind of ethos of Express, is that you add the tools you need as you need them. So rather than giving you everything at once, and you might only use 1 out of 20 things, it gives you one thing, 2 things, and then you go and grab the other things you need. So if you need post requests, you need a request.body to be filled in with data, then we need body parser. Okay. So then all we really need to do now, if we're isolating request.body.email, that's the email that's being sent. Let's save it to a variable. Now we just need to insert that, make a new user, which we've already seen how to do. And I won't make us type it from scratch, but hint, hint, we're going to be doing connection.query. And we've already seen how to do the query. It's going to be an insert into. If we go back, let's just copy this code here. This is what we've done in the past, where we inserted a single user. Go to app.js. So I have it commented out. I'll uncomment it. There's a couple things we're doing. The first, I made a variable called person with an email and created at, but we don't need that created at anymore because this was for Faker. We actually have a real created at. And then for request.body.email, we can just replace that. Okay, so we can get rid of that variable too. So this is just preparing the data to be inserted. We'll have a person object that has an email, request.body.email. And then all we need to do here, we don't need to store it in a variable, is just connection.query, insert into users, set, we pass in person, and then we have our callback function. So this is review. We've already seen how to insert, so I won't spend a ton of time on it. We can start by just console.logging the result, which will be a lot of stuff, hopefully. Let's see what happens now. We have body parser working again. Okay, good. Now, if I go over here, this time it will insert a real user. So let's do a more serious email address. Well, I guess that doesn't matter. How about Miranda? Let's not do all caps. Miranda54 at hotmail.com. Miranda. There we go. Join now. And look what we get back. Affected rows 1. It says OK packet. All this other stuff. And if we went into our MySQL, if we wanted to do a select star, well, it's going to take a bit. Let's have to type it ourselves. Select star from users, order by, created at, limit 1. We don't have a users table in all caps, oh boy. We get the wrong user, scared me for a moment. We need to also change the order at, or order by, created at, to be descending. And here we go, Miranda54 at Hotmail. So it worked. Long story short, it worked. And we're pretty much done. The only other thing we have to decide is, okay, our web app is just kind of hanging here. You can see that. What do we do next? And we could either do something like a res.send, thanks for joining our waitlist, let's say. We can start with that. And if we restart the server, do it again, have someone try and sign up with a new email, let's say janedoe@gmail.com. Click join now. Now we get thanks for joining our waitlist. So it's totally up to you how you want to structure this part. What I'm going to do is just have it redirect back to the same page, to the original page here, and we'll be able to see 503 or 504. It's really up to you. This is how you wouldn't use res.send, but you could do a res.render, and you could make a thank you page if you wanted to. But what I'm going to do is show you another line, which is just res.redirect. So res being response up here, res.redirect to /. And that will just take us back to the home page. So effectively what's happening, if I restart one more time, is we're on the home page. 504 is how many we just got from the database. I entered a new one, dave@dave.com. I click join now. It's going to hit this post route /register. We're extracting the email from that form data in the body, and then we're inserting it as a new person in our, or new user in our database. When that finishes, we're redirecting back to /, which starts this whole process over. It's going to then select all the count of all users. Then it's going to, oh, there's my cat. Then it's going to render our home page with that count. So to the user, it will just look like this page refreshes, and this goes from 504 to 505. But behind the scenes, a lot more is happening. And there we go. Okay, so that's awesome. Hopefully you think that's cool. All we have left is to style it. If you would like a little bit more detail on the insert part, and I can go over that a bit more if you'd like and what's happening here, but if you feel like you've got a grasp on it, you want to move on to styling, go ahead. Okay, so just to reiterate, we could have also done it a little bit more manually if we wanted to. We could have written a query like this. If I did var query, and I could have done insert into users email, so this should be more familiar, values, and then I would do parenthesis plus request.body.email plus closing parenthesis, like that. And that could be our query. So this would turn into, let's say request.body.email is dave@dave.com. It would turn into dave@dave.com, like that. So we could also do this query this way, and then all we would need to do is pass Q right here, if that makes sense. So that's another way of doing it. But this is kind of the standard way of doing it with the MySQL library, or the MySQL package that we've been using. So I'm going to get rid of that. But either way, maybe the syntax is more unfamiliar if you don't know JavaScript, but this is what we already saw as to how to insert a single piece of information, a single row into a table. And it's working.